everyone, and welcome to our Play Attention webinar today. My name is Amber, and I will be your host. Today, we are going to talk about the top 5 strategies for successful online learning. And we thought this would be a really great topic this week, especially since a lot of us now are finding ourselves doing online school with our children at home. So we're going to share some tips that should be helpful for you going forward. So thank you so much for attending today. I'm going to give everyone a few minutes to connect here. I know we're trying to go Facebook Live as well. So just a couple things before we get started. We are recording this webinar. So if you have to slip away before it's over, if you would like to share it with someone else, you will be receiving that webinar after that recording after the webinar is over today. Also, you'll notice down below on your toolbar, there's a chat box. If you have any questions, go ahead and type those in that chat box. At the end of the presentation today, I will address those questions. It is a webinar, so it's kind of hard for us to have interaction. However, occasionally I might ask if things sound right, or you agree with them, and I might ask you to raise your hand, so you can use the icon for that. If at any time you get disconnected from the webinar today, just use that link to reconnect to get back with us. And then finally, again, my name is Amber, and I will be your host today. Just a little bit about myself. I have spent the last almost 15 years now in secondary and post-secondary education, and working with students and helping them through their academic challenges and helping them reach their potential and their goals. This is a topic, though, today that is near and dear to me because I also have children that are home right now learning. Both of my children are in high school, but I do have a lot of family and friends that are also working with elementary age children. And we've been speaking a lot over the last couple of weeks as things have really changed. Our new norm has changed, and talked about some things that are really working, things that maybe we could use some help with or some adjustments with. So we wanted to just come to you today and chat a little bit about some of those top five strategies that should be able to help you day to day, whether you're working with an elementary or a middle schooler or high schooler, really help make that online education just a little bit more successful and make it a little bit easier for you to navigate. So we'll go ahead and get started. So we are going to follow an agenda today. I'm going to talk first, before I get into those top 5 strategies, I'm going to talk a little bit about executive function and cognitive skills because they really are important to this topic. I'm going to discuss those 5 strategies, and surprise coming, I have a 6th bonus strategy that I think you'll really appreciate. We are going to talk about how Play Attention can help, because Play Attention does have a tool that really does help this process. And then for those of you who are with us today, as a thank you, we are offering a free assessment package. And so if you hang on till the end, you'll learn a little bit more about how you can access that going forward. So the first thing I wanted to talk about today is executive function and cognitive skill. You know, what are they and why are they important? And so really, executive function, the easiest way for me to just really break it down so it makes sense is it's really like the CEO of the brain. It helps us plan, prioritize, organize. It helps us avoid procrastination. It helps us with that sustained attention. It helps us with time management. It helps us with emotional regulation. So there are a lot of pieces that it does throughout our life, through all areas, all ages, all aspects of our life. And it really helps us meet that potential and make things go very smoothly for us. And we use cognitive skills in that executive function. So memory, again, time management, sustaining that attention. So there are a lot of different cognitive skills that we can really use to help with that strong executive function. And again, they're important because time management helps us get on task and stay on task. Sustained attention helps us stay on, be able to focus in and pay attention to things that maybe aren't as fun and exciting for us, which can sometimes be schoolwork and sometimes be especially virtual schoolwork. That can be really hard for some individuals because we all learn differently. A lot of us are visual, a lot of us are auditory, which you can get 2 of those through virtual learning, but a lot of us are hands-on. And so that's a little bit different. And we're going to talk about how you can really kind of put that into your everyday lesson plans at home for your children and really help them be successful in those areas. And so they're really important. Those cognitive skills are important because they help us remember things. They help us with impulse control. They help us with being able to get our tasks done. So they really are important when we're talking about learning virtually or learning from home now, because it is a new environment for many, many of us. And I'm sure that's why you showed up today. And it all changed very, very fast. In the last 2 weeks, we've all been experiencing a lot of major changes in our normal, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today as well. And I want, again, to share some of the things that have worked in our house and are going really well, and some areas that we had to make some adjustments to. And so we'll go ahead and start with those tips now. So number one, so this is the number one tip that's really going to help you with that successful online learning, is creating a schedule and a routine. So why is that important? Well, most of our children or our students, if we have any educators here, are very used to a routine. Classes are at certain times of the day, lunch is at certain times of the day, we're waking up at home, in the morning we're having breakfast, we're going through, then we have the end of the day. A lot of our children also were in sports activities or piano or different instruments or other activities, and all of a sudden that has all changed. And so the number one tip, the first thing you're really going to want to do to help with that successful online learning is to create that schedule and routine. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of examples here in a minute on the next slide, but really, it needs to be effective for you. I can tell you all day long, follow this schedule, but that doesn't mean my schedule is going to work well for you. And so I'm going to talk about some things that we've used here, and I'm going to let you know that you have to be flexible. And sometimes you have to use trial and error. So as I mentioned earlier, both of my children at home are high schoolers. I have a freshman and I have a junior. And so they're different than an elementary student in what they're required to do. When we kind of saw that it was coming, that they were going to be doing online learning, the first thing that we did is we sat down and we talked about expectations. And we discussed that, expectations are very important and their job is still to go to school. It may be in a different environment, but it was still what they needed to do and what they needed to get done. So we talked about what was expected of them and being able to complete their tasks and do their homework and turn things in on time. And then between the three of us, we developed a schedule. And initially our schedule was 10 a.m. to noon was academic time, 12 to 1 was lunchtime and chores around the house. And then from 1 o'clock until they were finished was more academic time. And then after that, they could, if they wanted to, play basketball outside or throw the ball outside, they had that opportunity. Now, we found out right away, and this is why I said really you need to make sure it's effective for you and that you need to be flexible, because we learned within the first week that schedule was no longer going to work. And the reason was, and a lot of parents out there or caregivers that have a middle schooler or a high schooler may experience this. So both of my children, depending on their classes, some of their teachers are requiring certain times of the week virtual face-to-face at a specific time. So my junior in high school, he is in a couple AP classes and a couple honors classes. And so he is required at 8:30 on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to log in, and the teacher gives them lecture live. And so that automatically adjusted our schedule. My daughter, she doesn't have it every single day, the freshman, but she occasionally, once a week, her different instructors at different times, different days of the week, will also require at a specific time a lecture. In addition to tasks that they are receiving online that need to be done. So with us, our schedule that worked really well for us is once we were able to really gauge the whole picture of what we were expected to do, we started on Sunday night. We would sit down this week, especially because we that first week for us was that learning curve, was that trial and error, which you've probably experienced as well. We sat down and said, okay, let's look at both your schedules, what's required of you for the week, and then their schedules were adjusted accordingly. And so both of them now have different schedules. However, we still have scheduled in time for activity outside. We've scheduled in time for free time for reading, for doing maybe arts and crafts, something like that. And we've also made sure we tried to put a structure around lunchtime. I don't know if any of you have high schoolers in the house, but our high schooler loves to eat. And now that he's home, wants to eat all the time. And so we've really started to, make sure we build a little bit of structure around their day so they do feel like there's a little bit of normalcy and that they feel like they have a little bit of control. So the important thing here is to really look at what your child is expected to do. Do they have virtual learning? Do they have technology that they need to use? Did they receive a packet? Are you kind of using different resources? Look at all of that, and that will really help you define and create that schedule. But remember to be flexible, because that's part of life. We're still changing, right? Every day there's still new changes going on in our environment around us. And number two, make sure you're using trial and error, because it's not always going to fit. And so we need to be able to make adjustments and be flexible for that. Here are some examples that I shared with you. And at the end of this today, I'm going to offer to send out these slides. So I'll give you the opportunity. And if you're interested now, you're interested now. If you type in slides in the chat box, we'll make sure at the end of the presentation today, we get that all packaged together for you, and we'll email over the slides for this presentation today. So you can use some of these examples. I'm going to have resources in there as well. And then that's just usually something that individuals will really like in addition to the recording. But here are some examples. And as I mentioned, I have teenagers, I have high schoolers. So the expectation is a little bit different now, because there are certain times of the day and certain days of the week that they are required to be online at a specific time for live lecture, for live interaction. However, if you have an elementary student, that schedule is going to look very, very different, because you may have some technology that you're using. They may have a laptop, they may have a Chromebook, an iPad, something like that. However, there are some elementary, I know in our school district, kindergarten through second grade just received packets of information that needed to be done. And so this, the first example, that is one that somebody has used to make pretty much every hour fairly scheduled in their time. And so waking up at a specific time, exercising right away in the morning, and that's really essential. When we talk about our new normalcy, and not all of us right now, because if we're living in an apartment or something like that, can't always get that outside time, but scheduling in kind of that free time, that activity time is very, very important right now for our kiddos, because they're used to going to recess, they're used to having PE. So any kind of activity like that, what we can give them, it's really going to help break up that monotony. So if sometimes that's hard to get in, it's always good to schedule then that first, right? Schedule it first. It's going to get done in the morning. Statistically, we know what we put at the first part of our day generally gets done, because of the rest of our day doesn't get in the way. And then now we're at the end of the day, like, holy smokes, now I have to do this. I don't have time to get to it. But this really breaks down academic time, creative time, a specific lunchtime, chores, and that's really important too. Everybody's going to be home. So we have 4 individuals, 2 adults, 2 children in our house right now, and that's all the day, right? Every day, all day. And so there are more expectations that need to be done, more things that need to be done in the house, because we have 4 individuals living in here 24 hours a day, instead of those 8-hour blocks that they were away at school, and then maybe a 2-hour block that they were away at a sporting event. And so having your child be responsible for some things around the house is going to be very helpful for you. It's going to be helpful for your sanity. It's going to give them a little bit of responsibility. Most students in the classroom have some kind of task list, whether it's line leader, whether it's somebody that's picking up papers, whether they're taking attendance to the office. They do have jobs to do. So giving them jobs at home are going to help them with that routine. They're going to help feel more normal. There's quiet time built into this first one. More academic time, more time outside or fresh air, dinner time, free time, and then they've even scheduled bedtime, and then an alternative bedtime if everybody was well behaved. And so you can find a lot of examples of these online, but again, just because this schedule is this way doesn't mean that's going to work for you. You need to find what works for your family and work that way. If you need a little bit more flexibility, great. You need more, confines around that schedule, so it's a little bit tighter, definitely something you can do. Here's another example. So breakfast at a specific time, academic time, outside time, lunch, free reading, more academics, and then chores. So there's a lot of flexibility in that. But the number one tip that we can provide you is create some kind of schedule, some kind of routine. So they're used to that day in and day out as they go through. There's something that they can expect. There's something that becomes their new normal moving forward. Tip number 2, create a designated space for them. Now, this can be very difficult to do depending on what your home size is, how many children you have home. This is one thing we learned right away at our house that needed to be done. As I mentioned, I've got 2 teenagers in high school. I'm working from home, and so we needed to make sure that everybody had their own space. Now, I already have an office at my house. So I knew right away I was going to need to be in the house. I broadcast webinar or in my office. I broadcast webinars. I have client phone calls, lots of presentations. So I need to be able to have that space where I can shut the door, things can be quiet, and I can be uninterrupted. However, with both of my children having time where they also have live interaction with their instructor, they needed to make sure that they also had the same type of space. And so we decided my son was going to be in the dining room. My daughter was going to be in a spot she had in her bedroom. Doors can be shut. They can have that quiet time, that space that they need. And that designated space is really, really important because it provides that ability for more focus and attention to be had. It gives us that ability to really focus in on what we have to do without all of those distractions going on around us. It provides efficiency because we're right there. We know what we need to do. We can move forward. It provides that organization because we want to have all of the things that we need in that spot. Now, with that being said, I mentioned my son's at the dining room table. Obviously, that's somewhere that we're using in the evening to eat. So what we did is I have a big basket and all of his things go into that basket when he's done for the day. And we can move that basket quickly off the table. And so that's one thing that you can do if you don't have a lot of space that can be designated and things can be left, like my office, and you're looking at it, a dining room table, a spot in the living room, a kitchen table, something like that. By putting everything together in a basket or a bag, it can be easily moved out of the way, and so it's not scattered all over the place, but everything is there. And when everything is there, you're going to be more efficient instead of, well, where's the math book? I need to do math now. Where's the scissors? We're in craft time now. We can't remember where we put the scissors at yesterday. And so that's really going to help. It also allows us to minimize distractions again, because we are able to either shut ourselves or other individuals in the family know this is the space where they're getting their work done. It allows us to minimize those distractions. And then also provides motivation and inspiration. So even if it's in a kitchen, even if it's in a dining room, if you have younger children and they make a piece of artwork and you can hang it in that area, that's going to help them with that. That's going to help them with that inspiration and motivation, because think of their classroom. All of those things are there. They have their own designated space. They have a desk. They can put all of their things in their desk. And so what you're trying to do is recreate a space for them that they can efficiently work like they would be able to in the classroom. So here are some examples. So here, the first one is kind of a split screen of just a little desk pushed out of the way. A toddler table, a little desk pushed out of the way. We might not all have that opportunity. So there's another example here of a dining room table where somebody's using. And you notice all their stuff is packed really tightly together. They're on their technology right now. And most technology they're using is a laptop. And so now what you can do is you can just, like I said, get a basket, get a bag, and you can put all of that stuff right in there and move it out of the way if you need to use that table to play board games later, to have dinner later, whatever the case may be. Or if you're in the living room and they're maybe using an end table, you can keep all of those things together. Tip number 3, and this is really important more for our younger kiddos than maybe our teenagers, but provide choices. Give them the opportunity to the how, the what, the when, the why. This is really going to help them feel, again, like they have some control. Think of yourself as an adult right now. A lot of us feel like we're lacking a little bit of control. Things are very uncertain. We're not quite sure what's happening. However, we're putting things into place every day to help us feel a little bit more in control. So we want to do the same thing for our children. So not only can these choices be around what kind of academics they're doing or what kind of projects they're doing, this can be around their schedule. If we give them choices and say, okay, every day we're going to spend 2 hours doing some kinds of academics, we're going to spend 2 hours outside, we're going to spend an hour doing crafts, whatever the case may be, ask them, what do they want to do first? What is the first thing they want to do in the day? What do they want to do science every day? Or is it, maybe once a week we're going to do math? Get their input. Let them be part of this process, because as you're going forward, it's going to be a lot easier for them to stay on board and to stay engaged if they have ownership of it. And it also helps them understand how the learning process improves their thinking process. It gives them the ability to ask all of those different questions so they can improve that learning process as they go forward. It's really, really important to have them involved in this whole process. Even our young ones, it's really important. Like I said in the very beginning, my kids and I, we all sat down and we discussed expectations and we discussed what would work best for them. Now, of course, we had to pivot and make adjustments, but then again, we all came together and we talked about choices. Okay, when you don't have to be live, what does that look like going forward? Because we need to make sure all of those expectations are being met, even though we're at home. Tip number 4 is use our resources that are available. There's no need right now as a parent to recreate the wheel. There are so many free resources available. Some of you have probably received numerous resources from teachers and from your school districts. Some of you maybe not as much, or you're not quite sure what to use. Trial and error. Again, trial and error, but know that you do not have to recreate the wheel. There are so many, and I'm going to show you an example here or some Google searches here in a minute that you can use, and that's why I think it's important for you to receive the slides as well. But use those resources. Don't recreate the wheel. There's so many things that are free now, whether you're looking for science, reading, math, language, STEM activities, art, music, grammar. There are other tools that we can use as well. Zoom, that's what we're using today, so we can have that virtual interaction. You can use this for your teachers, for your classrooms as well. You can have those Zoom connections. You can also use Google Meet. That's what my children's school districts are using when they're doing their virtual lectures. They're using it on Google Meet. It's free. They're able to do that. They can broadcast. Students can see them. They can see the students. The students can ask questions. It's essentially a virtual classroom for them. And so there are all these tools out there available. And one thing I do want to mention is art and music are still very important. That's something that they're still getting every day. They're having time to do art projects, craft projects. They're having time, they're in music class. So by integrating those into their day as well, not only is it going to break up some of that academics for them, some of that monotony maybe, because some of our kiddos, they experience learning differently. So by adding some of those other items in there, instead of, oh, you have to do all of these math worksheets, it's going to help with that process again. Not only are we looking for success as, oh, they're doing well academically, but we're looking for success as they are effectively happy and doing their work, right? They're engaged, they're excited, they want to do this, they want to move forward. We're not battling with them to do all of these projects going forward. And so some resources that you can use that can be really helpful right now, and all of these areas have free resources. If you go somewhere and they're charging you for a resource, don't use it, because there's probably another resource later that is available to you that is no cost. So Scholastic is doing a ton of materials right now, and a lot of these places are giving printouts, they're doing videos. So again, they're covering all areas of learning, not just that visual, but auditory. Now it's hard to do hands-on, but some of them are providing material instructions to do that hands-on learning. But Scholastic is a big one. Britannica, Encyclopedia Britannica is another big one. NASA, there's a lot of videos coming. You can go into the NASA website and watch videos and really get into the different parts of their space missions and things that they do. Techlearning.com has at least 50 different sites within it where you can go, and it really breaks it down. Do you want reading? Do you want math? Do you want science? What are you looking for? And they've got a whole bunch of different links you can go when you go to that site. Same as weareteachers.com, or I think it's .com. And so they're going to be, again, they have a whole bunch of resources available for you that you can go in and really search to find what you're looking for. Because again, at this point, we do not need to recreate the wheel. There's so many. I mean, I've got just a few here, I think half a dozen, and there are so many more out there that you can use. Culturela.org. So if you're looking for art, if you're looking for things, so the museums in LA are broadcasting or have things available for them as well, tours that you can go through, virtual tours. And so again, not only are you getting your academics, but you're getting your art, you're getting your culture things for your students as well, for your children as well, to really help them break that up so it's not the same thing. So they do feel like they have some flexibility throughout the day and they can move forward. Tip number 5, encourage hands-on learning. So I talked about visual, I talked about auditory, but really hands-on learning is so important for some of our kiddos. And frankly, it's important for them right now as well, because it's a different type of learning environment. In the classroom, there's some kind of hands-on, regardless of what goes on day in and day out. They're doing some kind of interaction. And so we want to make sure we're still creating that for our children as well as we move forward. Why? Because it improves that kinesthetic learning, okay? So we're gonna talk about how each of these steps relate back to cognitive skills that we use and we build and that are important for us as we move through our life. But that's one of the things here that hands-on learning does. It improves that type of learning. It provides learning through trial and error. So it gives them the ability to make hypothesis, determine what do they think is going to happen, and then learn, was that something that did happen, or were they wrong and they need to make an adjustment? It really helps them with that trial and error as they move forward, because as we know as adults, there are a lot of things in our life that we experience that trial and error. So we want to give them the opportunity that everything's not always going to be perfect right in the beginning. We need to learn and grow as we go through the process. It increases our problem solving and our critical thinking. So specifically, that is our cognitive skill of working memory. Working memory gives us the ability to take information in, process it, and come up with a solution. And so being able to do that hands-on learning, it really helps us grow that cognitive skill, because it allows us to see this in front of us and try to put it together. You know, the very simplest form of this I can think about is, think of a baby toy where there's shapes and then there's holes to put those shapes in. And it's trial and error. They're learning to problem solve by going through those different ones and figuring out the triangle goes in the triangle. And so the same thing when we're talking about our children. Now, I'm going to give you some examples in the next slide of what you can use to really help you use that hands-on. So, because some of you might be thinking right now, well, I don't know what to do for hands-on. What are some ideas that you have that you can provide? So that will be on the next slide. And it provides more engagement for them. And you want to engage them right now. Again, you want them to be part of this process. And when they're part of this process, they feel ownership. It's easier to move through the process. Some of you might have experienced some difficulties right now where getting them to do certain things, and because everything is so new right now. Again, we're in this new normal that everybody's still trying to figure out how to navigate. Same thing with our kiddos. They're still trying to figure out how to navigate this. And so it gives them some more engagement, more ownership as they move through. And then again, it increases our retention, because again, working memory, all parts of our memory, we want to build that retention. And when they're using that hands-on learning, they have a better ability to remember what they're learning moving through that process. And so what are some ideas that you can use every day? Games. So some of you are, you want to make sure your children aren't on too much screen time, right? Now, all of a sudden, they usually went to a classroom for 7 or 8 hours a day, and maybe they had some screen time when they were there, but now all of their class time is on screen time. So it kind of varies. You know, as I have high schoolers, all of their screen time or all of their school activities is screen time. Everything's through their laptop. Either they're having a lecture or they are doing activities through that. And so you can use games to help with that hands-on learning that are not electronic based. You can use board games, you can use puzzles, you can use word, word problem solving. There's so many different types of games you can play. And I've seen a lot of tools being used right now where in math, individuals are using decks of cards with numbers and counting and dominoes. And so there's so many different things that you can use as a game, building blocks, Legos, that really help them work on that ability, that hand-eye coordination as we're moving through that hands-on learning. You can use interactive. So there are a lot in those resources I showed you before. There are a lot of demonstration videos that you can use where it's interactive with the children. And so they have a certain amount of objects and they're interacting and they're doing this. So if you do, if screen time is part of your schedule, those are some things you can use for hands-on learning. Experiments. So talk about, what your hypothesis, do an experiment, and there's so many options for you to do experiments, even with younger kiddos. If I make this wet, what does it do? If I make paper wet, all these different things. And you can use learning in that by having them talk about what they think is going to happen before it happens, and then having them do it, and then talk about what happened after they did it. Cooking. So not only is cooking a very useful skill for us to know day in and day out, it's another thing that we can use to help our kiddos with that hands-on learning, measuring, mixing, times, different things like that, and then putting that all together to make something, reading recipes. So there's so many, not only is it a useful skill that we can use day in and day out, but it's something that we can really give our children that interaction with that hands-on learning. Art activities. Now this can be an art activity that you purchase that's all together, that has all the pieces in it, and then they follow the instructions. This can be, okay, I'm going to give you a pipe cleaner, some popsicle sticks, some string, and some paper, and you go crazy. You make something, you really work on those pieces together. Exploring the yard or your home. So I mentioned before, some individuals, unfortunately, because of where they live, if they're in the city, if things are going on, they are in their home. So maybe you can't explore your yard, but you could explore your home. If you have a younger kiddo, have them go through and point out everything that's a square, everything that's a circle, things that are metal, things that are wood, and just go through and explore, or have them look for things that start with the letter S, or different things like that. Or exploring your yard, have them collect different leaves and then look them up and talk about the different forms of leaves. Things are really starting to bloom right now. We're in spring, so flowers, rocks. There's so many things that you can do. You can do a scavenger hunt. And so there's so many ways to get them outside of that traditional academics that's going to help them have a little bit more hands-on, that's going to give them that a little bit more engaged learning as they move through. So those are just some examples to really help them. Now, those are the 5 tips. We still have a few more things that we're going to talk about today, but I did want to give you a bonus tip, and this is so important for our parents that now are finding themselves at home online teaching or online education, so homeschooling, and often teleworking. So we have many, many families that we're talking to day in and day out that are, again, navigating this new norm where they're working from home, they're trying to help their children with their academics, with their homeschooling, and just figuring out all of those pieces. So our bonus tip today is don't be too hard on yourself. This is a very new norm for everyone. And this is not, I'm succeeding or I'm failing. This is, I'm learning. I have trial and error through this process. Some days are going to be better than other days. And that's just kind of the nature of what we're in right now. And I think that's really important for us to remember as caregivers, that this is a new normal. This is different for everyone. It's changing very, very rapidly. And don't be too hard on ourselves. We don't have to be perfect. We do the best with what we have. I love that motto. You can do the best with what you have right now. And so by using some of these tips to kind of help navigate your way through this, you can really kind of set up for success. Now, there's still going to be some days you're going to get more done than others, and that's okay. Don't be too hard on yourself. Again, remember trial and error. Remember to take care of yourself. As caregivers, we sometimes forget that because now we have, I don't know about you, but I have 50 million dishes all the time. I didn't think it was possible, but I have more laundry than I ever had before. And I'm working from home and my children are homeschooling. And so now I have all of these new things that are on my plate. I need to still remember to take care of myself. And that might mean, having quiet time, right? So everybody has quiet time today. We're going to do an hour where you're going to do a puzzle, you're going to read silently, you're going to, maybe watch a documentary, something where you're going to have that quiet time so I can have that quiet time moving forward. And then sometimes it's okay to let them be bored, okay? We don't have to entertain them every single minute of every single day. That's not education. And so sometimes we have to let them be bored and sometimes we have to let them navigate it on their own. But we really wanted to remind you that not only are we here for you to help you continue to provide you tips, we want you to just have grace with yourself and really, kind of just navigate this new norm that we're all moving through. So when I talk about all those 6 tips that I actually gave you today, all of those tips have a piece of executive function and cognitive skills that we need for it to be effective, right? So we need to be able to really have this cognitive skill, this executive function, to really help these tips work well, not only for us, but for our children. And we know that some individuals have stronger executive function than others. We know some individuals are also struggling with attention difficulties, which often means that they're struggling with executive function as well. So when we talk about a schedule or routine, that's really that time management. We need to be able to not procrastinate. We need to be able to get on the task and stay on the task. And we need to be able to get that task done in an appropriate amount of time. So if we schedule an hour for it, we want it to take an hour. So sometimes timers can be helpful. Making a schedule, using a calendar, using things on your phone can be really, really effective. At the end of the day, all of these different cognitive skills that I talk about, we really need to be able to build the skill. There's a lot of tools available to help us navigate through and try to assist us with that skill. But at the end of the day, we really need to build that skill. Now, play attention can help you with that. We're going to talk a little bit about that here in a minute. But I just wanted to provide some of this with you, for you as we kind of go through this. Tip 2, designated space. Having a space specific for you helps you filter distractions. It helps you stay more organized. And so those are important pieces too. That's a big chunk of executive function is being able to stay organized, to be able to plan, to be able to task manage. And we need to be able to have space to do that. Tip 3, providing choices. That, again, really helps us build our working memory. When we provide choices, they're really critically thinking through those steps to determine what's going to work best for them. It also is helping them build the skill of moving from task to task freely. So there are certain things when we're struggling with executive function or attention difficulty where it's really hard because we hyper-focus in on something and we don't want to move on to another task. And so by providing choices for us, it really helps us move from task to task more freely. So we don't have that emotional breakdown. So we don't have that emotional dysregulation. Now, one thing I didn't mention in choices that are really important when we're talking about choices, especially for younger kiddos, and it really is effective for all that we're talking about, but limit the choices. Don't give them 10 choices. That's going to really, that kind of goes outside of the scope. Generally, 2 or 3 choices are going to, and choices that you want to move forward with. Obviously, don't give them a choice that you really don't want them to do. You want to focus on, I either want you to do this or this. So you're going to have choice A or choice B. Occasionally, we're going to offer them choice C, but we want to keep it small so it's easy for them to move from task to task. So when they're like, oh, I don't want to move, and you can say, okay, well, you have choice A and choice B, and those are going to be your choices moving forward. When we talk about resource availability, again, we're talking about problem solving. We're giving you these resources and you're like, okay, I need to work on math and I need to work on science. I have a little bit of resources from the school, but I want to add some more to them. Maybe those areas that they struggle with a little bit more. So I'm going to give them more opportunity for more learning that is effective for them. Visual, auditory, hands-on. So I'm going to look through those resources. I'm going to really problem solve there, and I'm going to help myself through that process. This also gives me the ability to plan and organize because I'm deciding what I need to work on, and I'm organizing those tasks and pulling those resources that are available for me so I don't have to recreate the wheel. Hands-on learning. That helps us build our small motor control. just being able to use that small motor control to really use that hand-eye coordination to do those hands-on training are very, very helpful. It also helps us, again, with our working memory because we're problem solving, we're critical thinking, taking information in, we're processing it, and we're coming up with a solution. And then our bonus tip of don't be too hard on yourself. That's really being more mindful. And this is a tool that's effective regardless of your age. And, being mindful really is to be in that present moment, to be in the now. And it's really hard to do right now because there is a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of what ifs. There's a lot of thinking about, 3 weeks ago when I was just doing this and I didn't even think about all of these things I'm thinking about now. But being mindful means you're able to quiet those thoughts, right? You're not dwelling on the past and you're not stressing about the future. You're being in the now. You're doing the best with what you have right now, and you're really being mindful of those choices that you're making. And that's going to help you lower your anxiety. That's really good self-care for you moving forward. So these are all different cognitive skills that really are needed to make these tips very, very effective. So how do you can talk about meditation. You can talk about planning and organizing by color coding. You can talk about timers. You can talk about putting headphones on, being in a place where I can shut the door for those distractions. So there's a lot of different tools I can use to help me with these areas. And those are all very great tools that you can use right now that are going to help you. But at the end of the day, we want to be able to provide you those skills so you learn them and you have them permanently. And so really that is how Play Attention can help. Now, next week on Wednesday, April 1st at 1 p.m. Eastern time, we are going to be doing a webinar on Play Attention, all things Play Attention. We're going to talk about how it works, how we customize it, all of the different pieces. So if you're interested in learning more about Play Attention, we're going to just briefly touch on it today. If you're interested in learning more, all you have to do is type in webinar in that chat box. We'll get you registered. As always, all of our webinars are free and we record all of them. So even if you cannot attend it live next week, you will receive that recording. So if something you're interested in learning more about, please type in webinar in that chat box and we will make sure you get registered for that. So the ways that Play Attention can help is we do a thorough assessment. We actually use 2 assessments. We use the brief assessment, which is an assessment of your executive function, and we use a focus assessment, which is a norm-based test of attentional control. And what that does is it really helps us pinpoint areas you might be struggling with your attention and areas of your executive function you might be struggling with, because there's not a one-size-fits-all. So we want to take those assessments and we want to create a customized training plan that works best for you. Now, Play Attention, we will work with both children and adults. So we really want to make sure we're customizing it to work best for you. When you start with Play Attention, you have a lifetime membership. You have it for as long as you want. You can use it for as long as you want. You have some opportunity to have several users with the system as well. And we provide you unlimited support. So again, even though it's something you're doing at home, and we're going to talk a little bit about what the different pieces of the program look like, you have unlimited support of an executive functions coach. So you're going to have somebody there with you, helping you every step of the way. So that's really how Play Attention helps you build that executive function. And the first step we do, and this is going to be part of the free offer we're giving today, but again, we have that brief assessment and we have that focus assessment. Now with the brief assessment, if a child is 15 and older, they can do a self-assessment. If even at 15 to 17 or below 15 or ages younger than 15, parents will do the assessment. So if you have a 15 to 17-year-old and you want them to self-assess, you can do that. If you want to self-assess as a parent, you can do that. Basically, it's a 75 questionnaire assessment, which is looking at their day-to-day activities related to executive function. Do they perform that normally? Do they struggle in that area? Where do they struggle? How do they struggle? So it really helps us pinpoint those areas of executive function that they're struggling with. Because there's going to be some cases that things they do really well, and then there's going to be other areas where they need to build a little bit. Our focus assessment is our norm-based test of attentional control. So it's comparing individuals against their peers, and it's a 20-minute assessment you do right from home. There's a computer email link or a link on your computer where you log in. It gives you a little bit of demo, and then you follow these activities through the 20 minutes. However, and during those 20 minutes, it's going to look at those 4 areas of attentional control, and it's going to assess you on that norm range. And the thing of it is, it's putting you in a pretty, in your least ideal state, because the assessment's very mundane, very slow, very repetitive. So basically, it's putting someone that struggles with attention in their least ideal situation, to see how they perform, because that's the area that we want to increase. So that's the first piece that we start with, is the assessment package. And then we use that to create a very customized plan. And Play Attention uses a 3-part system. So when we learn anything new, the more feedback that we can get, the more we practice, the more likely we are to create permanency with that. Now with attention, with executive function, it's very hard to do because that's very intangible. However, with our body wave armband, which is the technology you see up here in the corner, that is able to pick up brain activity indicative to attention. So when I'm in my optimal level of attention, my brain gives off a very specific signature. This device is able to pick that up, feeds it wirelessly to the computer, and now all of these different cognitive exercises I have here, I can trigger with just my attention alone. So I'm getting immediate feedback, and I'm able to very specifically and have deliberate practice of those different skills along with my attention. So you'll see in here, there are time on task, that's that time management. You see memory in here. You see processing in here. You see hand-eye coordination, motor skills. So there's so many different cognitive skills that we have here. So we really can mix and match and find that plan that works best for you based off what area you're struggling with. Now, some individuals also are struggling with behavioral, fidgeting, getting easily distracted, things like that. And that is the third piece of Play Attention. We really work to help you build that self-regulation and that self-control. So again, if you're interested in learning more, we will be doing a webinar next Wednesday, April 1st at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Type in webinar and we will get you registered for that. We'll be doing it over Zoom just like this webinar today. So as a special thank you, as we wrap up today, we here at Play Attention want to offer you that free assessment package and consultation. All you need to do is type in the word focus. Now, this assessment can be for a child, it can be for an adult. We will provide you with one brief and one focus assessment for that individual. So just type in focus, type in a phone number where we can reach out to you. And basically what we'll do is we'll contact you. We'll get all of the information we need to do that assessment. We'll provide you with the links for that assessment. And then once you're done, we will do it's usually 30 to 45 minute consultation with you. We'll talk about the review. We'll review those assessments with you. We will talk about what a training plan would look like for you. We'll talk about Play Attention. We'll go through all of those pieces for you. So if that's something that you're interested in, we are providing that at no cost, one assessment package for each individual today. And again, that will be that brief and it will be that focus assessment as well. So now, I'm wrapping up on what we were talking about today. So I really appreciate all of you being here. I'm going to open up my chat box now, and I am going to see what questions I have. I know I see a lot of things going on of people interested in things. Remember, if you're interested in the slides, type the slides in. If you're interested in that webinar, type in the webinar. If you're interested in that focus assessment and that assessment package, you can type focus. And let's see here what we have available or what we had for questions. I had a question, is this information available in Spanish? We don't have this slide or this presentation in Spanish. Play Attention is our programming. We're in 7 different languages and Spanish is one of them, but unfortunately we do not have this presentation in Spanish. Okay, I'm just looking through here. Thank you for bearing with me. So I don't see any questions. I do see a lot of interested individuals in materials, so I'm very glad about that. Also, you see our website here, playattention.com. Please visit that because we have a lot of great information on our website as well. There are the different cognitive skills. There's a link on that, and it shows you the different games that we have and what skills we're teaching through those. We have a lot of great information on individuals we've helped in the past and their stories. We always are offering free webinars, and so the different webinars are always posted on our website. There's some great information on there. Additionally, we have been sending out information if you're not on our newsletter list. Every day this week, we've been sending out new things that you can do, new activities you can do every day with your child or as an adult to help you really build executive function. So if you don't think you're receiving those emails every day, go ahead and type in newsletter. We'll make sure that you're receiving that information and we can send you some information on that as well. So we will be gathering all of the information was asked of us today. So we will be sending you out the slides. We'll be sending you out that or registering you for the webinar if you're interested. We will also be, like I said, this recording will be coming out within the next couple hours. We'll email that out to everyone. And I really appreciate everyone being here today. If you are interested in that assessment package, we will reach out to you here shortly. So thank you again for everyone for attending today, and we appreciate it, and we look forward to working with you more in the future. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.